Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
All right, so Lauren and I just got home from Sun Circuit. It was a great show. We had great weather. We got to meet up with a lot of great people. I got to see a lot of my clients that I normally only get to see virtually. It was a great show. Lauren, how was your Sun Circuit?
It was awesome. Sun Circuit is one of my favorite shows. I love the weather. I love the location. I love how everybody is in a good mood. I love how it attracts people from all over the country. So, like for me, it's a great place to be able to reconnect with friends that I don't typically see at my usual horse shows. So, there was a lot of kind of camaraderie and cheering each other on. It's also super fun because a lot of the young horses are being brought out and kind of debuted for the first time. So being able to kinda see the new up and comers, the new teams, it's such an exciting environment, and so I loved every second of it. Personally, I showed my horse Dixie. We did the showmanship, horsemanship, trail, and hunt seat equitation, and then I brought my little ranch rider Pal around to ride and just kinda get experience, and I did end up having a few people try him to try to buy him, so that was kind of an interesting experience juggling the showing just in classes and then the showing of my horse to try to sell him and stuff. So we can talk about that and how kind of the balance of the two. But overall, I had a great show. Obviously, lots of ups and downs, but I can't wait to go back and get going to the next one.
So you said you had a lot of ups and downs. What were some of the ups and then what were some of the downs?
So, being a mindset focused, kind of positive person, I maybe came in with a little bit of too high expectations. I don't want to say they were unrealistic, but with the greenness of my horse and with the level of the level 3 competition that there is nowadays, I probably needed to set the bar maybe just a touch lower. So I came in thinking, "Okay, yeah, I can be top 5 in my classes. I could maybe eke out a win if something goes really well." And I thought that that was being pretty realistic based off of the competition that I had interacted with, which is why it's super important to go to these big shows so that way you're not just living in your head all the time and being barn blind. So I got there and my horse, I had shown her only 3 times last year, and we had just basically shown in the green classes. We had a ton of success, and she is absolutely fabulous, but making the jump from green horse to level 3 amateur, there is a huge gap. And I think that's something that also kinda needs to be addressed within the industry is it really fair to take these green horses who can have success at one show and point out of the green and then expect them to compete at the highest level where she's only 5 years old and these horses are 15 years old? It's a lot to ask. And so as a owner and rider, I need to be aware of that gap and say, okay, do I push her to try to be the level 3? Or am I okay with letting her be an advanced green horse where it lets us fall somewhere in the middle? So the first day, that was kind of the big kind of eye opener and gap because I'm like, okay, we're gonna go out there. And I stuck to what I tell all you guys. I didn't look around. I did not compare my horse to everyone else's horse. I just stayed in the zone and I felt super with her. The first class was a horsemanship class. Well, the first class were showmanship. And honestly, those were fabulous. I was super happy with her. We got some seconds, top 5s, top 10 every day. She did super, super great. She is ready to be at that level 3 level in that class. So that I was realistic with my expectations there. But I also had kind of tested the waters last year, and she did make the level 3 finals at the world show in the showmanship. So I knew that she was quality enough to go in and do that. So I had a lot of confidence in those classes. But the classes with the major gap were the writing classes. And that's where a lot of the experience and brokenness comes in. And so the first class was a horsemanship class, and I went out there and I was a little bit quote unquote safe. And we kind of got blown out of the water, Ellie. She wasn't bad by any means. But compared to these level 3 horses where these girls, they could put their hands down, open up their chest, smile, and show off, we're not there yet. But that was okay because it was good for me to see, like, this is where you need to go. And it's not that we were that far off with our quality and capabilities. The difference came from lack of experience, lack of her going to horse shows, lack of me being in the horse show environment and not getting super nervous stepping up to that cone. I mean, I did my box breathing. I tried to stay really focused and centered. We didn't have any major errors, which I feel like is always a win every time you step into the pen. But just being able to step up and get that plus 2, plus 3, I wasn't quite there yet. And so luckily Sun Circuit's a long show. So we kept progressing. The first day of the equitation did not go so great because we did the horsemanship and I was like, I was too soft. I need to go for it. I then did have an error in my equitation class on our downward transition, which is one of her best things, and I botched it because I was like, "We gotta go." And that was an eye-opening experience for me also of saying, "Okay, too soft was not enough, but too much is too much." And so being able to kind of see those 2 things happen within 24 hours of each other and then be able to come back, and it was cool, you stayed with us, so I was able to bounce some ideas off of you, and I was able to kinda vent and you tell me, "Hey, what would you tell any of the mindset or life coaching things? How would you get yourself back on track?" Right? And so it was kind of nice because it did make a difference having you there to bounce it off. That's why the horse show community is so key for what we do because you need somebody. You can't do this alone, whether it's a trainer or a friend or a family member. You just need somebody to be able to talk to, somebody to say, "Hey, you're doing okay. Let's get back up and let's go forward because you're really not that far off." And so by the end of the week, we ended up being second in the equitation, and I was super excited about that. We made the rail work and the horsemanship, again, based off of where she is versus where the level 3 maybe level is. Just thrilled with that. Super, super happy. So we progressed as the week went on, even though it was a little tumultuous at the beginning. I wasn't going to do the trail. And then I think it was you or somebody told me, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Just do it. Because the trail patterns were pretty hard.
Yeah,
And
they were.
they were really hard, right? Like, they were tight
Yeah.
and there were a lot of up down transitions. And so I told myself, I came all this way. Like you said, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? We need to just do it. And were any of my trail patterns perfect? No. But she did have several +1 obstacles in every pattern that I did. So it was really cool to be able to see those things and say, okay, once we get it all put together, this mare will be great at trail. It's just I gotta work on my transitions, my upward transitions. My downwards are good, but my upward transitions, I personally get thinking too forward instead of up and back. And so in the trail, when everything comes up so fast, that up and forward rambles you into the poles. And it just was an eye-opening thing also in that situation. Some of the slow work, I really had to work on my personal breathing and not get ahead of myself. And so because I knew that we were kind of quote unquote schooling the trail, I tried to take a little bit of extra time in those spaces and a little extra time in between the obstacles to work on the things that we talk about here and make it a little more intentional so that way hopefully once everything gets really dialed in, it'll be just subconsciously I can go out there and do the breathing, do the relaxing, not get ahead of myself, right? So not only was it a little bit of kind of show schooling for her, it was show schooling for me too. So there was a lot of learning. What did you experience by being a part of it all?
Well, so I wanna back up actually for a moment, and I want you to just roll with it. So, what was the best pattern that you had at the show? And then what was the worst pattern that you had at the show?
Yeah. Okay. So best pattern was probably I really liked my showmanship patterns. They were really, really good. I kind of expected that, right? Like I expected those to be high quality. I really enjoyed my last pattern of the week with her. We started off with a back a corner, half turn, extend the trot, square corners, stop with your hip at the judge, pivot, set up, then you pivot again, and I can't remember if we trotted or walked out, but we left. We left the arena. I really liked that one. I felt like she was 100% with me. She was really good in her shoulders. I felt really confident and really kind of settled in that pattern of being able to execute correctly. And I think that part of the reason for that was we had 2 prior runs in the showmanship, and both of them had been successful. So I felt like I could be successful, right? Does that make sense? Where
Oh, yeah,
confidence
for
begets
sure.
confidence.
Yeah.
So that was good. My worst, quote, unquote, "showmanship run" would probably be the first day. The first maneuver was extend a trot stop, and I came out with, like, a lot of energy because it's first class, first day, first move, and I botched
Coming
my
in
first
hot.
stop. Yeah, I was. We were running, man,
You were
and so I
zooming.
botched yeah, botched my first stop, but I was super proud of myself because in the past, maybe I would've been like, "Ugh, I messed up my first stop, and now the rest of the pattern's doomed," but instead, I said, "That's just one maneuver. Let's make the rest the best maneuvers we've ever done." And honestly, there was a lot of those that were absolutely beautiful. I got some plus threes on those, so that was really fun, and we ended up, I think, 4th or 5th under 1 card, even with that bad first maneuver. So, that I was really proud of myself for not weakening after a bad thing. So that would be my showmanship ups and downs. My hunt seat equitation ups and downs, like I said, the first day, number 1, she was too fresh. That's a thing that I struggle with personally. I don't like lunging. So a lot of times I'm like, "Oh, it'll be fine. Let's just go." But when you're competing at the highest level, you probably should lunge. Listen to your
And
trainer. If
and on a green horse.
Exactly, exactly. Listen to your trainer when they tell you she doesn't look very tired. You don't say, "Oh, it'll be fine." You listen to them.
Right.
So, that was the first run. Not only was she fresh, but I was like, "I gotta step it up and go." So, that was kind of a combination of probably not the greatest. And then my favorite equitation pattern was, again, the last pattern. I thought it was super controlled. She was really with me. We had some really great transitions. She was super smooth, and we ended up 2nd that day. So I was really, really happy with the progression there. We went from day 1 not making rail work, day 3 being able to be 2nd under 1 card. So and that took a lot of that was more of a mental thing on my part in order to show her to her best ability. So, I was proud of myself for being able to make adjustments to show her off to where she looked the best. And then for the horsemanship, I wouldn't say I necessarily had a quote unquote bad ride there. I just was too soft. So that was one where I needed to be able to finesse the greenness, yet show off the really good parts that she could do. So I probably really liked my 2nd day's run in the horsemanship. It just felt really connected and like she would could do all the things and she stayed really with me. So that was really fun.
So there's something that I want to point out here in a minute, but I think it was on Saturday. It was the last day of the trail, but it was your first pattern of the trail because you ran the trail 3 times in a row. So it was the
Yeah.
first one. How did that one go? And how did the moments leading up to that pattern go?
Yes, the last trail day. So we had 3 trail runs all in a row. It that was kind of an interesting thing too because I kinda had to time out both sides because it was a work or it was a block, so you got to choose when you went, but I wanted to kinda try to get them all done in about the same time, but we were working on 2 ends of the arena. So that part was a little bit stressful of timing it, but the biggest thing was I had gotten some news in the morning that was pretty disappointing, and I personally, outside of horses, was not in a great headspace. I was pretty down and wasn't feeling like I just deserved to be there or that I was on the right track of everything, and thankfully, you were there, and thankfully, I was willing to kinda share with you what I was going through. In the past, I probably wouldn't have shared. I probably would have just put a smile on and pretended everything was fine. But being able to tell you what had happened outside of the horse world, like, really helped because you gave me a lot of support and encouragement and belief in me that just made so much difference because I was really, really down, and I don't wanna say I was in, like, kind of like a give up mode, but my mindset was kind of like, "Well, I just give up, like, can't do anything right, so why are
Right.
we
I
even
would
doing it?"
I would say that's accurate. I would say that you were in kind of a give up point.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you work so hard, and then when things get said, it's really tough, especially because I'm, like, kind of a words of affirmation person, so words affect me more than the sticks and stones probably. But, it was tough, and so I was really thankful to have you there to kinda be like, "Look, you're gonna be okay, and you gotta focus on what's in front of you right now, and you need to be with Dixie and make sure that you show her off to the best that you can." And I tried to take that to heart as much as I could, right? As much as I could in that moment of I'm deep down in the dirt and my sucker is buried, right? But you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. So we showed the first round, and there were some good parts, but I did have to stop in school because I missed a spot. And when that happened, I feel like I was like, okay, you're letting the external world win. Like, the external world is not here at this horse show with you. The external world is not here in the class with you and Dixie. Why are you letting them win if they're not the ones that are even doing the thing right now? So I had some issues, but then when I came out, I felt like, okay, that was not an issue because of Dixie or because it was an issue because of me. And it wasn't an issue because of what I was capable of doing. It was just because of the outside. And luckily, I had 2 more runs to be able to do. And both of those runs, I felt like they got better each time. I never had a perfect run in the trail, but trail is hard. But
I don't think you ever have a perfect run in the trail.
yeah, exactly. But I felt like I grew as a person in those next few runs, right? To be able to step up and get through things. And, like, one of the runs, the very first obstacle, I came in funny, you had to, like, trot over 3 poles, and then you had to go up to the gate, stop, do the gate. Well, when I trotted up to the 3 poles, I thought she was gonna chip, she thought she was gonna reach, and so we kinda, like, double stepped a pole, and I was like, "Oh, man. What in the world?" But you know what? I had a choice in that moment. I said to myself, "Okay, I can either be mad because I messed up, or I can say that was simply a miscommunication. It wasn't Dixie being bad. It wasn't me being not a good rider. It was just a miscommunication. You've only done trail a handful of times with this horse. So why don't you just show off the rest of it and see what happens?" And I thought the rest of that run was the best run that I had put together that day. And I think a big part of it was because I said to myself, the error that we had was not a reflection of her desire to try or my capabilities as a horsewoman. It was just simply a miscommunication. So let's pretend it didn't happen and see what happens the rest of it. And she was so good. And so that was probably the toughest day mentally for me is being able to overcome all of that. And I appreciate you being there to kind of dust me off and say, it's okay, let's go.
Well, right. I mean, even though you're typically like the mindset coach in our relationship and I'm more of the fitness coach, that doesn't mean that we can't provide the perspective that the other one needs. And just because you're a
Yeah.
mindset coach does not mean that you always have your quote unquote shit together. Like you have
Yeah.
ups, you have downs. I have ups and downs in my fitness. Like just because we're a coach doesn't mean that we're always on the money all the time. But what I really wanna point out is the correlation in your mental preparation to how you showed.
Mhm.
So, let's talk about the patterns that didn't go quite as well as you wanted. So, like the trail that one trail go, and then I think you said your first hunt seat act go, right? Like, you
Right.
weren't in the right mindset in the 30 to 60 minutes before that class. In the
Correct.
trail, your mind was just not even in Arizona. It was back somewhere else, not where it needed to be. And we kinda had to remind you and ground you, "Look, you paid all this money, you spent all this time, all this effort to get right here in this moment. Don't let that go somewhere else. You need to be present and you need to be here." And then in your hunt seat deck, I think that you, were nervous about some external factors, nervous about things in the past, and then you like
Mhm.
you said, you were just expecting too much. So you kinda had to reel yourself in, and then the next hunt seat deck pattern went much better. So
Yep.
the mental preparation is so important to how you're actually gonna show.
Absolutely. And I think that's where surrounding yourself with a great community at the horse show is so key too. Because, like I said, you were a big factor. My trainer was a big factor. My mom was a big factor of being people that I could lean on in those times when I didn't feel as dialed in as I should. So it's so important to have that community.
Yeah, it is. It takes a village, you know? You can't do this on your own.
No, no, and I don't want to either, right? Not only it's just yeah, so that was a really, really big thing, and I'm glad that we were able to kinda learn from it, and I'm excited about the next show because I learned a lot about myself and my horses, and I want to go and show and see if we can improve upon it. And I think that was a kind of a big thing too because it's not like we went and set the world on fire at this horse show, but yet I'm still excited to go to the next one.
Right, like, you don't have to win in order for it to be a successful show.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that was one, like, a big thing to be able to take away, especially when you have a green horse, like, you can't expect to win at that level, right? You
Right.
can hope and try and work as hard as you can, and that's obviously the end goal, what we're all striving for, but there's lots of ways to, quote, unquote, "win" without actually having to have that number 1 by your name.
Another thing that I wanna talk about was I think it was the same day, and it was the last day of the horsemanship, and I think it was the only horsemanship go that I actually got to watch you show because I was busy during all the other ones. But you went out and you did the horsemanship, and I thought that you had a great run. It probably wasn't where it needed to be in, like, the top 5, right? But it was still a great run. And then what did you do? You went and you looked on the horse show tracker and you were like, "Oh, like, horse show tracker says that I'm, like, 25th. I'm just gonna go back to the stalls because there's no way that I'm gonna make the rail work." And what happened?
Well, okay, also in my defense, they had, like, this weird rail work deal where they would call certain numbers back for one set of rail work and then certain numbers back for the other set of rail work. So I waited through the first set of numbers being called back, and we didn't make it back on that one, and then, yes, I did go back to the barn, and normally, I'll keep my chaps on, but it was, like, the last day of horsemanship, so I just took my chaps off, gave it to my mom, walked back. Lo and behold, we, I guess, made the rail work, which I am mortified about because that is not the type of person I am. You should always show up if you make the rail work back. But the problem is my stalls were so far away. Like the shops were just long gone. And there was no way I was going to make it back because it's such a long walk. So, yes, major no no for me. Always wait until they call all the numbers, not just half the numbers, even if the horse show tracker says that you probably didn't make it. Because somehow, I don't know how, I still don't know how, somebody wanted to see me back on the rail and I was not there.
Nope.
So,
You were
big
gone. They
no.
were calling you, Lauren Crivelli, where is she?" And I was like, "Where the
Ugh.
heck did you go?" Because I was sitting up in the stands, and I was like, "I don't see her out here, like, she's not here. She went back to the stalls." And I remember I called you, and I was like, "Where are you?" And you were like, "Well, I went back. I didn't make it." And I was like, "But you did. You did make it," you know? So, I think that there's a point to be made there that don't give up on hope until the very end, right? Like, even though
Yeah,
you
and
didn't
don't
think
always
that you
trust the
were there
technology.
and don't always trust the technology, right?
So you being there through all the ups and downs and being able to see how kind of long the days were, which you also worked at this horse show and had even longer days than me. But what were your kind of thoughts on just how long a horse show day is and then having 10 days of that, right? Like as a fitness trainer, what did you kind of take away from that experience?
It was a long show. It was a very long show. So I was there for like, I don't know, 9 or 10 days. And so I wasn't there showing. I was just there because I wanted to support my clients that were there showing. I wanted to be at the horse show. So that was kind of my original intent with going. I was really hoping that my barn was going to go and that I could just go with my barn because that's what I normally do is I travel to whatever horse shows my trainer is going to and I just go and I stay with her and I help out and sometimes I show, and so that's kinda how horse shows normally go for me. But my trainer wasn't going to this show, and I was like, "Man, like, I still wanna go." So, Lauren was kind enough to let me crash with her the whole time,
Yeah.
so I stay with Lauren, and I would've figured it out, but yeah. So, I'm very thankful that you were kind enough to let me come and stay with you, but it was a long show, and so I was still working the whole time that I was there. I was watching my clients go, and then there was this trainer that I know that had posted that he needed some help at Sun Circuit, and I was like, "Well, like, the first 3 days, I was gonna take off and just kind of enjoy the show." And this trainer posted that he needed some help, and I was like, "Okay, like, oh, I can help for a couple of days." And I kinda tried to ask of, like, like, "How long of hours?" And, like, what are you thinking?" And, "How much help do you need?" And, "What do you need?" And I never really got an answer, and that should have been a sign for me that I was gonna be, worked very long hours, but I was kinda like, "Oh, like, he probably just needs a couple horses lunch, won't be that big of a deal," you know? I was wrong. So, I show up on the first day, and so I worked for him for 3 days, and I walked 16 miles 3 days in a row, and I worked anywhere from, like, 14 to 16 hours a day, 3 days in a row. I
Gee.
am not used to that kind of work. That is not something that I do on a daily basis. I don't even
Yeah.
know if I've walked 16 miles before. Maybe once in, like, Disneyland, something like that, right? But
Yeah.
that's not something that my mind, my body is used to doing. I'm used to hard work, but not that kind of hard work, and the hard part was there were some days when I came back to the trailer and I still had my own work to do, right? On the very
Right.
last day that
Yep.
I worked for him, I came back, I had to do some stuff for Elevate Your Ride. So even though I'd
Yeah.
worked that many hours, I still had to have the mental energy and the physical energy to get my stuff done. So those 3 days were challenging. They were hard. They pushed me. Like I've talked about before, I've got my back injury on I think it was the 2nd day. I was hurting. I was hurting bad.
Yeah. I
And
believe.
unfortunately, I was stuck lunging, right? So the trainer that I worked for, he brought 28 horses to that horse show. And
Wow.
all those horses needed to be lunged, you know? And so it
Oh,
was
yeah.
me and 2 other girls that were mainly doing all the lunging. And normally, lunging doesn't really bother me, but when you're lunging that many horses in a day, it starts to get to your body a little bit. And there was like on this, I specifically remember there was this one horse that I lunged on the second day, and he wasn't necessarily a bad horse. Like he wasn't being bad. He just was kind of pulling on the line quite a bit. He was pretty fresh, and he was just a little unbalanced. And I felt like he was using the line to balance himself. So, but he was using me to balance himself, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I was lunging him on kind of a small lunging pad, and there was a lot of horses going on, so I had to keep on kind of a short line, right? And so after lunging that horse, like I had to go and I had to like sit down for a bit and I had to stretch because I was in so much pain. And
Mhm.
I just had to take a moment and be like, okay, you know what you need, you just need to stretch. So I took like 10 or 15 minutes and I just stretched. I did forward fold, I did some side bends, I did a bunch of different things to help lengthen out my back. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to go now. So even though there was a lot to be done, I had to take that 15 minutes and be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I cannot go lunge another horse right now. I need to take care
Yeah.
of my back. Otherwise, I'm going to be paying for this forever. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just run my body into the ground. So, I had to take care of myself, and then I got a lot better. I didn't every night, but there were quite a few nights where I went back to the trailer, and thank God you brought your foam roller because
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have survived the horse show without your foam roller. So I came back and I foam rolled and I just had to take care of myself. I'll be
Mhm.
honest, there was not a day where I specifically did an exercise routine. I wanted to, but horse show days are long. They're taxing mentally, they're taxing physically. You get back to the trailer and you just want to go to bed. And I was running on multiple nights of like 5 hours of sleep maybe. And I know that some people can do that, but I am not a person that can run on that kind of sleep very well. So, I think I've talked about before, I struggle with vertigo, and when I get tired and just mentally and physically exhausted, I'm much more susceptible to be dizzy. And I was I cannot let that happen, right? Like these people need me.
Yeah.
I'm here to do a job. I cannot say that I'm dizzy and just go back to the trailer. I need to dig deep and I need to be here. So, I knew that I didn't have time to exercise. Like, I knew that my body probably would have benefited from it, and I probably would have been less sore and felt better, but I knew that I had to take care of the dizziness first, right? Like, I can deal with some pain, but I can't deal with the dizziness. So, I had to take care of that. Those 3 days were rough. They were rough. They were
Yeah.
harder than I was expecting to be. So then from the rest of the show, I felt like I was just trying to recover from that. Like I said, I did quite a bit of stretching. I did a decent amount of foam rolling, and I did my stretching, like, throughout the day. I didn't necessarily go back to the trailer and do, like, a 30-minute yoga session, even though I probably would have really benefited from that. I didn't. I probably should have, but I didn't. But I did my stretches throughout the day. There were many times where I would just go do forward fold or I would go do some side bends because my back was getting really tight and I knew I needed to take care of that. So I I look at my fitness like this when I go to a horse show. I don't need to burn any more calories. Like you're
Right.
already probably not eating enough, you're walking a bunch, you're burning calories, you're riding, like you're doing all these things. If you've put in the time and the effort in the weeks and the months going up to the horse show, you can afford to take the week or 2 off at the horse show. Like, all your
Yeah.
progress that you've made in the weeks and the months leading up to the horse show is not gonna go away because you took 2 weeks off. And
Right.
part of that, I think, is because you took 2 weeks off, but to go do other athletic things, right? Like, you didn't just
Yeah, we're
take
just
2 weeks
sitting
and
there.
go and Right, you're not just sitting at a desk for 2 weeks. You're riding, you're walking, you're doing the showmanship, like, you're doing things that are still working your body and you're still doing athletic things, right? So, for my clients that are there, people always ask me, "Do I need to work out at the shows?" And no, like, you're not gonna do a full-on normal workout at the show. 1, you usually don't have the time, you usually don't have the energy, and the last thing that you wanna do is accidentally make yourself sore going in
Right.
going into a class, right? Like, that is the last thing that you wanna do. So, I
Yeah,
tell people
absolutely.
yeah, so I tell people, "Look, if you can, and if you're driving, bring your yoga mat, bring your foam roller, like, try and get some stretching, try and get some light foam rolling in, or, use the little like I've talked about before, use the little balls, right, and kind of use the and do the foam rolling that way so that you don't have to bring your giant foam roller, right? But do something, don't do nothing, but listen to your body, right? Like, I knew on those couple days that if I didn't stretch, I wouldn't be able to walk the next day. So, I
Mhm.
did what needed, but I didn't do a whole lot more than that. And, we had a goal of trying to work out, like, do, like, a full-on workout at some point during the show, but it doesn't happen. Like, you
Right.
get too busy, there's always a million things to do, and then it was also tough because you were trying to, market one of your horses while you were there showing. So, how was it difficult for you balancing riding, showing your horse to other people? How was that for you?
So I put my little ranch rider up for sale while we were there because being able to jump between both arenas, both the all around and the ranch pen, once I got to the horse show, I realized that might be pretty unrealistic. So I figured, well, we're at a show, there's lots of trainers. Let's put this little guy up for sale, which he is fabulous. I love him to death, but he is a little green and it probably wasn't the right time to try to market him, but I knew he was going to go around and be good for people. But it was hard to work around other people's schedule plus your show schedule because at a horse show, it's kind of hurry up and wait. And so if somebody's got a free minute, they're like, hey, I can do it right now. So then you kind of have to hurry up and jump and wait around. And then all of a sudden it's a mad rush. And it just added a lot more hours to the day having to fit that in. And so I probably don't recommend that. Trying to do all of the things and be all of the things. But it was a good experience in certain ways because each person that tried him kind of had a different perspective. And, you know, one person said that he needed to trot a little bit bigger. And it's just because I hadn't practiced his trot. And by the end of the week, man, he was trotting like a big horse. So if that person hadn't have tried him, I would have probably not realized that and needed to address it. And then the next person said that he was too green, which I knew he was too green, but they had some ideas of what I should do to kinda help him to think on his own and be a big horse, and by the end of the week, like, that little horse got so broke, and while it was a stressful to be able to run around to all the pens and try to show him to people, I learned so much through those trials that, honestly, I'm probably just gonna keep him and grow with him and use him as a great learning and fun horse to have, because he improved so much in that week, and he was so good for everyone who tried him, and while he wasn't finished enough to go on and go be with someone else yet, I had a lot of hope and excitement for what he will become if I just put a little more time into him.
I feel like there was a bit of a theme while we were at Sun Circuit, and for you, like, I feel like I had to keep reminding you, "Don't forget to have fun," right? Like, don't forget.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, there were lots of moments where you're like, "Oh, like, I'm just not having fun right now," right?
Mhm.
And there were lots of moments where you had to be like, "Nope, like, you're here because this is your hobby." At the end of the day, this is our hobby, right? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
it's so easy to get caught up in, the competition and doing your best and beating everybody else and watching what everybody else is doing and, keeping up with the Jones. It's so easy to get caught up in that. And you have to remember that we do this for fun. This is
Yep.
what we do for fun. We don't take vacations, you know? We're
No.
not going to Italy. We're not going to the beach all the time. Like, this is our time away from work. This is our time away from home. And you need to remember to let loose. And maybe sometimes it's okay to not be 100% perfect because you have to remember to have fun. If you lose the fun, you're going to get burnt out so much quicker.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, we do this for fun. These horses are our joy and our excitement and a lot of our hope, and, like, just embrace every moment that you can with them. It definitely made it better when I tried to focus on having a good time instead of a perfect time,
Yeah, because there's no way that you can have a perfect time all the time, right? Like, there's so many
right?
external factors that are going to affect that, but you have total control about whether or not you have a good time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.